My guest today is a political humorist and libertarian who has written for big name magazines, including Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone, and The Atlantic. He has also written numerous books. His 20th is out now, The Cry from the Far Middle, Dispatches from a Divided Land. PJ O'Rourke, I've been following your work for quite some time, so it's an honor to have you on. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, well, thank you for having me there.
You are saying we need more than ever now the rise of the extreme moderate.
Well, what I really mean by that is that we need to be arguing with each other in a sensible way. At the moment, we're sort of standing on either side of the street. Everybody has a megaphone and everybody's screaming at each other. It's a big, complicated country and a big, complicated government. And, with as large and as complicated a country as the United States, you're never going to get the kind of small, simple government that I ideally would love to have as a libertarian, but it simply isn't going to happen. The government and the politics involving government are going to remain large and complicated. So that means that we have a lot of really important issues that we've got to thrash out. How do we fund Medicare? How do we fund Social Security? How do we maintain this level of debt and deficit without destroying the US dollar? How much money should we allocate to defense? What parts of defense should that money be allocated to? When do we intervene overseas? When do we avoid intervening overseas? And so on and so forth. And so I don't mean for everybody to have a big hug, a big group hug, and sing Kumbaya together. I just want to get people arguing for
Uh,
real.
right. Because I like how you were saying we used to have, good old fashioned arguments, and
Yeah,
now
yeah.
there are kitchen sink arguments.
They are. This is yes. This was what I likened it to. Was I think anybody who's been in a relationship knows this one. It starts out with a little disagreement about re-slip covering the couch. Should it be tartan plaid or should it be cabbage rose chintz? And somehow or other, the argument gets a little out of hand until people start throwing the kitchen sink at each other. It's like, and you leave your socks right in the middle of the bedroom floor, and you leave a wet bed towel right on the bed. And from there it goes, it goes ballistic. It goes to, I hate your mother. I've always hated your mother. I've never said this out loud, but I hate your mother, and so on. And, first place, the couch never does get re-slip covered. In the second place, the relationship doesn't survive
Right.
a kitchen sink argument.
PJ, I want to just read an excerpt from your book that I thoroughly enjoyed. We need a political system that isn't so darn sure of itself. It's time for the rise of the extreme moderate, as you say, power to the far middle. Let's bring the wishy and the washy back together, along with the namby and the pamby and the milk and the toast. The extreme moderates, non-negotiable demand, negotiation. We won't compromise until we see some compromising. We want political action or inaction. And it depends. So
It
that sums up.
depends on what's needed at the time. We do actually, I mean, this is how democracies work. Democracies cannot withstand people having a absolute idea of what is right and wrong. I mean, I don't mean right and wrong morally. I mean right and wrong in terms of political policy. When people start getting high on their own cooking, start believing that start treating politics as if it were an item of faith that required like a perfect belief in an ideal system. That's when let's look around the world. We've seen that all over the place. We saw that with the Bolshevik revolution in Russia in 1917. That's when people start killing each other, when everybody is convinced that they're absolutely and morally right.
Just another point you made me think of, brought up Europe in the past and how passionate and mad they get about politics. Having lived in Europe for 5 years, I totally understand what you mean by that. Um, and we were never quite like Europe, but do you think that that pendulum has moved? Are we closer to being like Europe now?
No, I don't think so. I really hope not. I mean, it's Americans are maybe a little bit more angry with each other and divided from each other than they usually are. Although, like I pointed out earlier, this is by no means that strange. and it's not a singular occurrence. But really, in our day-to-day lives, we don't take politics that seriously. I mean, one thing I'm really thankful for is that politics is a very small part of American life. When it comes to, what sort of decisions that we don't, when we're like out dating, we don't do a national poll. We don't have primaries to see who we might be passionate about,
But we should.
Actually, thinking of my first marriage, yes.
Right.
Maybe we should. Who we marry is not decided by a national election. How we raise our children is not how we conduct our business, how we make our livings. Politics comes into all this, it affects it, but it's not central to it. And I think for many Europeans feel, whether correctly or incorrectly, feel that politics is central to all this,
They
all
do.
these aspects of
They
life.
do. PJ O'Rourke, I appreciate you spending a part of your afternoon with me. I think your work is
It's a
brilliant,
pleasure.
and thank you so much. Go out and get PJ O'Rourke's latest book, The Cry from the Far Middle, Dispatches from a Divided Land. Thank you, PJ, and thank you for watching this installment of Stansberry Research. We'll have much more for you. In the meantime, follow us on all our social media channels. I'm Daniela Cambone.